This is a tutorial for modeling a metal roof. Um, I've had this metal roof in some of my other tutorials, but I've updated my methods a little bit and a few tricks to make it look better and make it easier. So I'm going to go over that right now. So I'm going to open up SketchUp and I've got my toolbars open. I've got this section drawing and I'm just going to drag this JPEG into SketchUp. The next thing I need to do is right click on it and say explode, and that will turn it into a texture with 4 lines around it. Then I'm going to select the whole thing, right click and say make group. Then I can double click on the group, and to make it easier to see my drawing, I'm going to click on the X-ray button in the styles toolbar. And I can see that this measurement is 10 feet. It's supposed to be 10 feet. And since this drawing isn't to scale that I could scale in Photoshop and know exactly how big it is, I'm going to have to fake it a little bit. So I'm going to draw a line with a pencil tool from the underside of this soffit down to the floor line, the middle of the floor line right there. And that should be our 10 feet. So and right now you can see if I just click on one side of it and I hover over it, on the bottom right corner down here, if you look, it's close to 10 feet, but it's not exactly 10 feet. So to make it scaled exactly 10 feet, I'm going to double click on my group so I'm inside the group, and you can see that by the dotted line box around it. Then I'm going to go up to the construction toolbar and the tape measure tool. Click on one side of the line and then click on the other side of the line, then type in 10 feet, so 10 enter, and it will say, do you want to resize the active group or component? And I say yes. So now when I measure that with a pencil tool, it should be exactly 10 feet, and it is. So now I know the scale is correct. So I'm going to grab that. I'm going to use the move tool and just move this so the floor line is in line with this axis line, the axis, and then rotate tool, click and drag, and then click and drag. Type in 90, enter for 90 degrees. I'm going to turn off shadows here. So I'll turn off my X-ray mode for now. So I'm just going to explode this again, and I'm going to draw a line from the middle of the axis right there all the way across, and then use the eraser tool to just erase this bottom part that I don't need. So this, I'm just going to move this over a little bit. So I'm going to make a demo for this tutorial purposes. I'm going to make a room that's 30 feet by 40 feet. So over here, I'll draw a line over to the starting of my wall, and I'll get that point, and I'll go over. Since this is going to be 40 feet, I'll do 20 feet in each direction, so 20 enter, and then this direction will be 40 feet. And then this way, actually I'll do whatever this ends up being. So I can see that my wall, if I go up to here, turn on X-ray mode, and then I want to go up 10 feet, and then over, and so I want to do the same thing over here to get the size of my actual size of my room. I don't actually know what size it is right now. Let me check. So it looks like it's 46 feet and a half inch. So I'll type it in, 46 feet and then 1.5 inches. That didn't quite work, but I'll just do 2 more inches. That looks right. So So that's the width of my room, and the length of my room I'm just going to do. I'll actually bump that up to 80 feet, so I'll do another 20 feet in each direction just to make it easier to do this demonstration. And then I'm going to go halfway over and then halfway over this way, because I want to have a valley in the roof to just kind of show you how a better way to do roof valleys that looks a little more accurate to what it would be built in real life. So there's the outline of our room. So I'm going to do a little trick to get the roof built really easily, along with all the detail and the gutter all built into it in one action. So what I'm going to start off with is just draw a line going up here, and I'm gonna cut off the rest of this room because I don't need this anymore. It's gonna pop back in, you'll see when I do the trick. So I don't need any of that for right now. I'm gonna delete these extra lines. I don't need those. Actually, okay, let's start with that for now. So let me just draw in this extra detail here. Just follow along with the image in the middle of these lines, going up. And then this gutter, I'm going to trace around the outside of the gutter to give it a little bit of a thickness. And then when I get to this point, I'll match that point here, go over, and then hold down shift. It will lock my line to that red x-axis, and then I'm going to snap it to here. I'm not going to draw it down. I'm just going to leave it as solid so that when I do the follow me tool, it will just revolve around. So I'm going to draw a line just as a placeholder there. Actually, I'm going to delete that. I'm going to undo that. So what I want to do is, I know this roof, I want it to be 312. You can kind of see it here. It says 312 pitch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up 3 inches, 3, enter. Then I'm going to go across on the x-axis, red, 12 inches. And then that's my slope. So it's a 312 slope, roof pitch. Then I can start to trace that line I made. Hold down shift again, and then follow it all the way up. So this slope in the background, it's not exactly correct. I think it wasn't drawn correctly, because I'll make sure just one more time. I'll draw up 3 and over 12, and it matches perfectly. So I know it's supposed to be 312, so I'm going to follow what it says, not what it shows. I'm just going to assume that someone drew it wrong, but they wrote the correct information. So I'm going to ignore all the rest of it, and then I will follow the edge of this. So I'm going to go in 6 inches, 6, enter. Just for now, I'm gonna ignore the thickness of that wall. I think that may be from a different project, so it's not correct. Because I'm pretty sure the wall is supposed to be 6 inches, so I'm just gonna follow what I'm pretty sure I know. Now the interior, I believe it's supposed to also be 312. I could be wrong, but I think it is. I'd have to go back and look at the documents. But if it is, I'm just gonna click on this line here on the top of the wall, hover over that line to grab the reference to it, the inference they call it, and then I get my pinkish line there, so I know it's the parallel to that one. And then I can use the eraser tool to erase the extra edges. Now I'm going to erase all of these extra edges so that all that I have left is, I'm even going to get rid of the texture and just put the default texture material on all my geometry. So what you should have, it should look like mine at this point if you're following along. And I'll do a save. I'll do metal roof. And so there's two pieces, and we're going to do the follow me tool. And what this will give me is a lot of information very quickly. So I'll get the wall will be modeled, the ceiling, the soffit, the detail on the edge, they call the fascia, the gutter, and the roof slope. All will be modeled with one click of a button. So first I click on the face, which will get me my whole outside profile. Click on the follow me tool and then click on this face. That's all you have to do. I'm going to turn off x-ray mode. So that gave us a ton of detail in a very, very short function of using that follow me tool. So I'm going to delete anything that I don't need. I just want to leave my walls intact. And I also want to delete the inside of these edges, because these are not actually supposed to be there. I'm just using them to get to the point, to this far. And then what I'm going to do is to complete the rest of the model of the roof. You may have seen this in a different tutorial, is I'm going to click on that, trace it back, hold down shift, and then that will give me my pinkish line that will follow that profile, hover over this side, and that will give me the correct length, and then I can just snap it back and delete the extra line. And I just keep doing that all the way around. Hold down shift, hover, snap. Do it here, hover, click, hover, hold down shift, hover, click. And then this should be a straight line going this way. And then this, I believe, should, oh no, this line needs to come over straight that way. And then that's extra, this is extra, that's extra, extra, and then one more line from here to there. And if you delete these extra lines and the roof disappears, then you know that you did something wrong and you might have to redo it. But if you draw these lines and the roof, you delete the extra lines and the roof stays intact, then you know it was done correctly. It's always better to make sure it's done right the first time, and if it's not, just go ahead and redo it until you get it to behave correctly, because that will save you a lot of hassle later on down the road when you need to modify the project. Inevitably, every project needs to get modified at some point, and if the geometry isn't lining up properly, it's going to cause you a lot of headache. So I'm gonna do the same thing I did on the roof to the ceiling on the inside. So I'll delete any extra lines that I don't need. This one, that one, that one, that one, that one. That should be it. Okay, so now I've got my walls done, my roof done, gutters, soffit, fascia. It's all modeled. I'm going to save it at this point. Save it as the next version. Just in case you make a mistake, you can always go back 10 or 15 minutes into the past and open up and copy and paste something if you accidentally delete something. So good version control is important. So what I want to do is I want to take this roof, lift it up an inch, and then extrude it out another inch. So I'm going to select, control select all of these roof faces, go to my move tool, hold down control and move up a copy 1 inch high. Now I can actually, I can delete this just to keep it clean Probably, since that's the gutter, I'll have to think about how I'm going to do this. I might just connect this face up and leave it if it looks good. I think I might do that. Let me see how it looks here. So I deleted those extra lines. Now I have to add these lines back in to fix the faces going up for that metal roof. And I'll probably just leave it like this. For this type of roof, I think that's fine. Yeah, I think I like it like this. You could always make it, you could make it stick out a little more, but with that big gutter on there, it's probably better just to leave it like this. So the next thing I want to do is I want to create the ridge geometry and also the valley geometry. And so this is kind of a little bit of the old tactics I used to use and a little bit of new, and I think it looks better this way. First I'm going to turn off the axis. I'm going to go to styles, edit, turn off model axis so it's just in my way. And then I'll do, I'm just going to adjust my lens angle a little bit. You can go do that by doing camera, field of view, and then you can just click on the screen and drag the mouse to adjust your perspective to how you like it. And then right click on the scene, update, and then that way you can always go back to that same camera view. At this point I'm going to save a version of this. So I want to copy all these faces up again, but instead of just copying them up 1 inch, I'm going to hold down Control and move copy up 10 feet. And then I'm going to right click, make group, and then double click so I'm inside this new group, and go to view, component, edit, hide rest of model. So I'm just working with this new group. Now I'm going to offset all of these faces by 5 inches. So I'm going to go to the offset tool over right here, click and drag and type in 5, enter, and then I can double click the rest of them, and then it will always be 5 inches. So it's going to do the last thing I did, the last function. Then I need to connect the ends of all these faces straight out with that pinkish line so I know that it's, oops, see I got off a little bit. So I know it's continuing straight. I'll do that for all of these. And if it's not straight, you can always hover and then hold down shift and make sure it's straight. And then I'm going to do the valley. And this is going to be a little bit of a different thing, but I want to isolate this valley, so I'm going to draw this line. So any valleys, so first of all, let me just delete these excess geometries I don't need, because I just need the ridge lines and this valley line. But for the valley, I don't want it to be 5 inches wide like the top ridge line geometry. I want it to be 2 inches wide. So I'm going to offset it again, just this valley piece. Any valleys are going to be offset again by 2 inches. So 2, double click. So I just want this inside 2 inches on each side. So this 2 inches I want to keep. Oops, I think that was off a little. I'm just going to hold shift. And then I want to keep this 2 inches on this side. The rest of it, let me make sure I continue this line up here. And then I can delete the extra stuff. Okay, so now let me just save that, just in case it crashes. You never know when it's going to crash. And then I'm going to move a copy, hold down Control, move a copy up again 1 inch. And then I can delete these extra faces on the inside. I just need that outline going up. So I can go like this and just delete the underside, and I just need the outlines of everything. This is all unnecessary. It's just going to get in my way if I leave it. That's something I really like to do, is keep everything as clean as possible. It really helps keep my mind clear and helps make changes easier in the future, the cleaner the model is. So I'm going to go ahead and just drawing the extra lines going up to create these faces. Did something, yeah, I didn't have that line straight. See, if you know you messed up when you make all the outlines and the face doesn't create, you know something's wrong. So if I can hold down Shift, I can straighten out these lines without having to go back and redoing it. I can just fix it like this. Now if I delete the crooked lines and then keep the straight ones, it should work. And it did. So the reason that I'm kind of showing you this kind of roof modeling techniques is just because I think that it looks a lot better than I've done a lot of different ways modeling metal roofs, and I've tried like hundreds of different ways and just seeing, okay, what looks better, what's better for a 3D metal roof. For this, I want it to be half as thick as, or half as high as the ridge. So what I'm going to do is I select both these faces, right click, make group. Then since it's raised an inch, I'm going to move it down a ½ inch, so 0.5 inches. Right click, explode. Now I can finish drawing the extra lines on all of these exterior pieces, and then around these edges as well, and then finish up here. Okay, that's everything. These 2 lines don't need to be there. Okay, that's how I want the ridges. So they're 1 inch by 5 inches are for the ridges, and then the valleys are 2 inches by 1/2 inch high. Okay, so now I can double click outside of our group, move it back down 10 feet, and it should go into the correct space. 10 apostrophe enter. And it pops back right where it's supposed to be. Actually, what I want to do is I want it to be, instead of 1 inch, I kind of forgot. I think I want it to be 1.25 inches high. So I'm going to have to select all of these top faces. I think it looks a little better when it's 1.25 inches. So I just need to raise it up 0.25, and then that will be 1.25 inches high. And then this, instead of 0.5, it should be, that's fine. 0.5 is fine. It's close enough to what I wanted. I can't remember exactly what I decided, because I kind of want it to be halfway. But what's half of a 1.25? It's like let's say half of 1.25 would be 0.8125, I think. So if I go 0.125 higher, that should be half. Anyways, it's kind of what I want. Like, this should be half the height of this. That's about right. Okay, so now the ridges and the valley lines are modeled. Okay, so now let's go back to our view. Let's save it. Now the last step is modeling the ridges. So what I like to do is model a rectangle that's 1 inch wide, so 1, enter, and then click on that rectangle, right click, or double click, right click, make component. I don't need to cut, so say none, and then uncheck cut opening. I don't want to cut the roof, I just want it to set on top. So double click that, and then push pull that 1 inch out, and then rotate it so that click and drag rotate, and then click and drag that and snap it to the corner of the roof. Now I'm double clicking this, and I can also hide rest of model. I can delete this face because you'll never see that face. It'll always be facing the roof, and the more faces that you have that line up like this, the more chance of you getting flickering when you go to render your animations. So I always like to delete them if I know I'll never see them with the camera, because it'll just end up causing more problems during the rendering processes later on. So let's go to my scale. So now I can scale this up so that enough that it just barely intersects inside that, so that it's simulating if that was wrapping over it to keep the rain out. So now what I want to do is hold down control, move a copy 1 foot or 12 inches, either way is the same, over. Control click both of these, make that into a group, and then I want this group to have an axis that is lined up with the roof line so that I can scale it up a little if I want to. So I'll double click that. So I want to change the axis of this group, not the axis of the whole world, just double click. So I'm inside this group, go to Tools, Axis, click on the corner, and then click on the edge, and then click again, and then click outside. So now it changed the axis. So now if I scale it, I can scale it down and up, and it won't change the shape of my roof ridges. And then I also want to move this over so that it's about a foot from here to there, and we'll see how that lines up when we get to the end. So we can go ahead and go view, component edit, unhide rest of model, and then we'll move this over, control move another foot or 12 inches, and then type in 44x, enter. Actually, do 66x, enter. That'll create a whole bunch of copies. Then I'll delete. I have more than I need, so I've got all of them created. I probably need to move it over a little bit to just center it up on the roof. That looks right, without actually doing the math to get it perfectly centered. Now what I'm going to do is I'll just start out by scaling this group up in this direction all the way up to the top here. And I like to start with one of the biggest pieces, and then I can move it and rotate it around to do the rest of them. So this is a good one. It's a big one to start on. it'll be good. Let me just save it before we go any further. And double click. So now I want to select all of them that are too long, and I'll start scaling it back. So control select those. So I want to leave these at full length, and then just use the scale tool. I can start scaling these back. And then deselect. Yeah, I almost went too far. I don't want to go too far. I'll just so yeah, like right there. I can deselect one from each side as I go. And you might be thinking, why go through all this trouble to make these objects so nicely modeled? Why not just draw the lines right on top of the roof and just draw them around the whole building? Well, I'll tell you why. Because someday, for one thing, it's a lot cleaner to do it this way, but also someday you might want to change things, and you're like, oh, I think this ridge should be a little bit skinnier, so if I just go like this, now I made all of the ridges skinnier just by making one skinnier. And if I don't do it exactly this way, if I just draw the ridges on one at a time and just do it really quick and dirty, this will not work. The only reason why it works like this is where I can edit all of them by editing one. I can change the color, the size, I could change the profile. I could make it more of a triangle instead of a square. And all I have to do is do it to one, and they all change on the entire project. That's amazing, and it happens a lot. Almost every project you're going to want to make changes, and when you get to that point, you're going to be like kicking yourself, like, oh, I wish I would have set it up with components so that I made these the same component copy of each other. That way I could just change one, but now I got to go and change every single one, and that is a nightmare. So anything that's copied multiple times and all you're doing is changing the position and the rotation, in this case also some of them are different lengths, but that doesn't really matter. You could still change the shape and the color of it, and it would change all of them, and it would still be in the right place because they all have the same profile. So it's a little bit of extra time at first to set it up like this. Now I'm not gonna go through the whole thing, but you get the point. So once I did all of these, I scale all of these back so that they all line up like this. Then I would go ahead and do the valley one. Now this one, let's go ahead and do it. So I'm going to click the move tool, and then control move a copy over to this side. And then I'm going to click the rotate tool, click on the blue rotate it 90 degrees. And then I'm going to move it and hold down shift to lock it, and then move it all the way over here so that we got that valley covered up with lines. I might just adjust it just slightly like that. Yeah, that looks good. So for this part, we have to line it up inside the ridge a little bit, and then also line it up with this edge here, which is a little bit more tricky, and I'm going to show you an easy way to do that. Because if I just click on this, so that since this is a group, this is different than this one, but if I double click twice, now I'm inside the component. So if I double click once, I can delete these extra ones that I don't need for this group. So, um, so now I need to line up both sides. So let me just save it really quick. So if I double click and then grab that one, select it, and then do the scale tool, I'll scale it down a little bit. And then this side is a little bit tricky, but there's a little strategy that I've learned how to use, I've discovered, to get it lined up fairly quickly. So if I do like this with the scale tool, I can get it close, but it never is perfectly lined up. It's because it has all these different snapping inferences it's trying to do. So if I go back a few inches, draw a line from here, and hold down shift to the face there, then use the scale tool, I can snap this exactly. Well, it's not doing exactly what I thought. Maybe if I draw a line from the middle or the top, it'll line up a little bit better. You can tell I haven't done this a whole lot yet. This is kind of a new thing, but basically I'm tricking it to line up where I want it to. I think if I did the middle, hold down shift, and so it's got that red axis locked because of the axis of my whole group that I'm inside is lined up this way. So if I do middle, that should be lined up almost exactly where I want it. It might not be like microscopically perfect, but I think it's close enough. If I do middle and then I can snap it, I should be able to snap it to the end of this line. There we go. So that's what I was trying to do. And then I can just use the eraser tool to delete that line when I'm done. So let's do a couple more. And yes, this is a little bit tedious. It takes a little bit of time, but it's worth it for the future of the project. So do our pencil tool, grab the middle. Oops. Gotta zoom in a little bit. Hold down shift and then line up with that face. Scale tool. And then snap it. And delete that line. Now it's lined up right on that edge where I want it. So it all the rain should just come down here, and then it will go into this trough and then down into the gutter. It's exactly what I want. I'll do one more, just so I know we got this. Got this down. Scale. Draw a line, hold shift, hover over the face, snap, and then scale it. And snap it to the end of that line. Okay, so that's how you do the valleys, and then this is how you do the ridges, and that's it. And everything lines up on the edge. And then you just continue that all the way across the roof of the project. Okay. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Until next time.